Imagine you live in like a quiet, tight-knit neighborhood, right?
Yeah.
And you get into a minor, maybe slightly petty disagreement with the head of your homeowners association.
Oh, the classic HOA drama.
Yeah, exactly.
What?
Like, say it's about the height of a new fence you put up, and it's the kind of thing that, usually ends with some passive-aggressive glares at the mailbox.
Or maybe one of those stiffly worded letters taped to your front door.
Right. But instead of sending that letter, the HOA president just responds by, well, calling in a tactical military airstrike to level your entire block.
Just 0 to 100, instantly.
Literally. Because you expect a measured structural response to a problem, and instead you get this absolute scorched earth nuclear option. And the crazy part is, this isn't just some hypothetical.
No, it really isn't.
2 days ago, in a tiny mountain town of about 900 people, a mayor got into a petty dispute and responded by literally wiping his entire police force off the map overnight.
Which is just, it completely shatters your understanding of the rules of engagement. Because we expect institutions, even the tiny local ones, to act with a certain level of predictable structure. And when that structure just evaporates overnight, it really forces us to ask how fragile these systems actually are.
Exactly. And that feeling of a petty dispute suddenly going nuclear, well, that's what brings us to today's deep dive. We are looking at a wild, rapidly developing story out of Cohutta, Georgia.
A fascinating case study.
It really is. And to give you the full picture without you having to, drown in a million different news alerts, we've pulled together a really great stack of sources.
What are we looking at?
So we've got on-the-ground local reporting from the Dalton Daily Citizen, a really excellent summary from Ground News, some highly insightful commentary from locals on Reddit, which is wild, by the way, and the exhaustive GMA handbook.
Right, the Georgia Municipal Association.
Yep, along with the town's actual municipal charter. Our mission today is to unpack this small-town drama, not just as a piece of wild news, but as a masterclass in how local government power, structural mechanics, and political ethics actually function in the real world.
Because, the mechanics of how a single person can dismantle an entire public safety apparatus overnight is incredibly revealing. It shows us the hidden wiring of local governance.
Okay, let's unpack this. It's Wednesday morning. Cohutta Police Chief Greg Fowler gets a call from the county dispatcher about a tree down in a roadway.
Just the most standard small-town police work imaginable.
Right. So he heads to town hall, and Mayor Ron Shinnick pulls him into the courtroom and says, essentially, I am abolishing the police department. Tell your officers to turn in all their stuff, effective immediately.
Wow. Just like that.
Just like that. And shortly after, Chief Fowler and his roughly 13 officers, the entire force, mind you, they arrive to find a printed notice taped to their door stating the department is fully dissolved, quote, per Mayor Ron Shinnick.
What's fascinating here is how the mayor actually attempted to justify this absolute dismantling of a public safety agency to the public. Because you have to say something, right?
You would think.
Yeah.
But the excuses he gave are honestly hard to believe. So first, he tells the chief it's because of a Facebook post.
A Facebook post.
Yeah. Apparently, the police department used their official Facebook page to answer some routine questions about a town issue, and people were upset that the cops didn't, and this is the literal word he used, retaliate against the citizens' comments.
Wait, he was mad they didn't retaliate online?
The mayor was seemingly mad that the police were being too polite to people on Facebook.
Which is an incredibly bizarre standard for law enforcement behavior. Usually you want them to be polite, but his justifications kept shifting, didn't they?
They really did, because when the local media pressed him on why he just fired 14 cops, the mayor deflected with a joke. He claimed that low concrete in the town was a more pressing issue for the newspaper to report on than his dissolved police force.
Low concrete.
Yeah, I guess like pavement issues? I don't even know. And then he used a sports metaphor. He compared firing an entire law enforcement agency to a college football program needing to, quote, change the coach.
Oh, wow.
He literally said, it's a guy thing. Some people like it, some don't.
It's a complete deflection tactic. When an official provides multiple, disjointed, and frankly trivial justifications for a massive structural decision, it's almost always a smokescreen for the actual catalyst.
Absolutely a smokescreen. And if you look at the Reddit threads from locals, you realize this town has, like, a history of wild dysfunction anyway.
Oh, Dad?
Yeah, one Reddit user pointed out this piece of local lore where the Cohutta police station supposedly caught fire years ago, and the fire department, which was located right across the street, basically just stood there and watched it burn because the two departments had beef.
That is incredible.
Right. So there is definitely a flavor of chaos here. But you're right, the low concrete excuse was just a smokescreen for pure, undiluted retaliation. Because according to former Sergeant Stephen Andrew Thornton and several other officers, this all goes back to the mayor's wife, Pam Shinnick.
Ah, the underlying personnel conflict. This is where the timeline becomes the most critical piece of evidence.
Let's lay out that timeline, because it's damning. So, Pam was the former town clerk. Back in January, the town council actually approved her termination for creating a hostile work environment.
Okay, so she was already fired.
Right. But even after she was fired, the drama didn't stop. 6 police officers and a former jailer filed formal complaints because she allegedly still had access to their private information and confidential town records.
Which is a huge security issue.
Massive. So you have the police force actively filing grievances against the mayor's wife.
Which naturally creates an intense, immediate conflict of interest for the executive of the town.
Exactly. And here's the kicker. Just 6 days before the mayor fired everyone, the town held a public press conference. The mayor, the police department, and the town attorney all stood up and declared a positive resolution to the complaints about his wife.
So they said it was fixed.
Yeah, the attorney stated publicly that she was shut off completely from the sensitive information. Everything was supposedly settled. 6 days later, boom, nuclear strike, everyone is fired.
It's just staggering.
Right, so taking it back to our initial thought experiment, I mean, can a mayor really just nuke an entire law enforcement agency overnight because his wife got fired and he's mad about it? Like, is he essentially operating as a king here?
To answer that, we really have to look past the interpersonal drama and examine the town's literal DNA, which is its municipal charter.
Okay.
Because local governments in America, they aren't sovereign kingdoms. They are structured entities that only operate through the specific powers granted to them by the state. So this whole question of the mayor's authority requires us to look at the structural mechanics of how Cahuta is actually put together.
Let's pull up the blueprints of this disaster then.
So in Georgia, the GMA handbook outlines 3 main forms of local government. You have the council manager form, the weak mayor form, and the strong mayor form.
And Cahuta is.
Well, many small towns adopt a strong mayor model because they want to streamline decision-making. They don't want to get bogged down in council red tape for every minor administrative task. And Cahuta operates under a charter that was actually recently rewritten in 2021, and this new framework gave the town a very robust, strong mayor structure.
Meaning the mayor basically holds the keys to the castle.
Precisely. The charter crowns him as the chief executive. It explicitly gives the mayor the power to appoint and remove all officers, department heads, and employees of the town.
But wait, I'm looking at our notes here, and the town attorney actually publicly defended the mayor right after this happened.
Did he really?
Yeah, the attorney went on record saying the mayor is, quote, allowed to hire everyone, and he's allowed to fire everybody. So if the town's own legal counsel is saying this is totally legal, why wouldn't the mayor think he had the green light? I mean, is the lawyer just wrong, or is the charter incredibly poorly written?
Well, the lawyer is technically correct about the personnel, but he's fundamentally wrong about the institution.
What do you mean?
It comes down to a crucial misunderstanding of executive versus legislative power. Think of it like a large corporation, right? The CEO has the executive power to fire the entire staff of the mailroom if they want to.
Sure.
But unilaterally deciding that the corporation no longer has a mailroom at all and permanently dissolving that entire division, that requires a vote from the board of directors.
Oh, I see. So he can fire the mailroom staff, but he can't abolish the mailroom itself.
Exactly. And if you read the actual text of Cahuta's charter, there's a massive blind spot the mayor just completely missed.
That's the blind spot.
The charter explicitly gives the town council, which is a legislative body, the sole power to create, alter, or abolish departments.
Wow.
Yeah, the mayor fired the employees, which is his executive personnel power.
Right.
But by taping a note to the door stating the department was fully dissolved, he attempted to use an executive hammer on a legislative nail. He bypassed the council entirely and broke the machine.
So he drops this nuclear option thinking his authority is absolute, but he completely miscalculated the legal landmines buried in his own charter.
Completely.
Which brings us to the fallout, because you can't just break the structural machine of a town and not expect alarms to go off. What happens when a mayor abuses this kind of power?
Well, the first alarm bell is ethical. The GMA handbook spends a lot of time detailing the concept of public trusteeship.
Public trusteeship, okay.
Right. The Georgia Constitution states that public officers are trustees and servants of the people. They hold a fiduciary relationship with their constituents.
So it's kind of like a financial advisor managing your retirement fund. Like they have to act in your best interest, not their own.
Correct. And the conflict of interest rules are very clear on this. Retaliating against municipal employees on behalf of a spouse fundamentally violates the code of ethics for government service.
Because it's personal.
Exactly. You cannot use the power of the state to settle a personal family vendetta. When that happens, the system has emergency brakes built in to remove that person.
And the town didn't hesitate to pull those brakes at all. The town council immediately called a special meeting to discuss the Georgia Public Officers Recall Act of 1989.
The Recall Act is a powerful direct democracy mechanism. It allows voters to basically remove an elected official before their term naturally expires. But you need specific legal grounds, like malfeasance or misconduct in office.
Which, fits this situation like a glove.
Oh, absolutely.
But what shocked me was how the math actually works for a recall in a town this size. Because think about this. The law requires signatures from 30% of registered voters to trigger a recall election.
30% sounds like a massive democratic hurdle in most places.
Right. But if you look at the local reporting, there are only 628 active voters in Cahouta.
Oh, wow. So you only need about, 188 valid signatures to force the mayor into a recall election?
188 people. You don't need some multi-million-dollar political campaign to hit that number. You just need to walk through the bleachers at the local high school football game with a clipboard.
That is incredible.
But beyond just losing his job, I'm thinking about the actual financial devastation here. Like, if I'm one of these 14 shell-shocked officers, guys who suddenly lost their livelihoods overnight with zero severance, do I sue the mayor personally? Or does the town of Cahouta, meaning the local taxpayers, have to foot the bill for the mayor's temper tantrum?
So this takes us out of state law and into federal law, specifically Section 1983.
Okay, what does that do?
It's a statute that allows citizens to sue city officials for depriving them of their federally protected rights.
Okay, but let's be real for a second. We hear about government officials doing terrible things all the time, and they almost always hide behind qualified immunity.
Right, the legal shield.
Yeah, it's this magic legal shield that says you can't be sued personally just for doing your job, even if you make a massive mistake. So isn't the mayor completely safe here under that?
Usually, yes. Qualified immunity exists so that officials aren't paralyzed by the fear of lawsuits every time they have to make a really tough discretionary call. However, that shield has a critical vulnerability. To pierce the veil of qualified immunity, a plaintiff has to prove that the official violated a clearly established right, or that their actions were performed with malice or an intent to injure.
Oh, and that 6-day timeline we talked about earlier.
Exactly. That timeline is the potential smoking gun here.
Because it proves intent.
Right. If these officers can prove in federal court that this mass firing had absolutely nothing to do with low concrete or budget efficiency, but was actually a malicious, intentional vendetta to retaliate for the complaint against his wife, the mayor's immunity could just evaporate. He could be held financially liable for damages.
He could literally lose his house over this.
Potentially, yes. But here's the terrifying part for the citizens. The town itself might still take a massive financial hit anyway.
How so?
Because if a city official acts as the ultimate decision maker, the municipality can be held liable for their actions. So the taxpayers of Cahouta could be on the hook for millions in wrongful termination settlements.
Which totally explains why the town council went into an absolute panicked scramble. With the mayor personally exposed, the council realizes they are sitting on a financial time bomb and they have to stop the bleeding.
They had to act fast.
Yeah, but while the lawyers are looking at federal statutes, the actual human beings living in Cahouta were suddenly left completely without a police force. Let's look at the on-the-ground reality of what happened next. With the 14 cops gone, the Whitfield County Sheriff, Darren Pierce, had to immediately step in.
Right.
He announced his office would assume law enforcement services so that emergency response times wouldn't drop.
Which geographically and structurally was a relatively seamless transition. Cahouta already utilized the Whitfield County Jail to house its inmates anyway.
Right, but if you're listening to this right now, you are probably doing some mental math that just isn't adding up.
Oh, I know where you're going with this.
You're thinking, wait a minute. Cahouta has roughly 900 citizens. Why on earth does a town the size of a large apartment complex need 14 police officers in the first place?
It is a staggeringly disproportionate ratio of officers to citizens. I mean, for context, major metropolitan cities usually have about 2 to 3 officers per 1,000 residents. Cohuta had closer to 15.
It's massive. And the Reddit locals pointed out a harsh reality of how these tiny municipal structures actually survive. I mean, how do you fund 14 cops with only 900 taxpayers?
You use the police force as a revenue generator.
Exactly. The classic speed trap economy. Small towns often position their officers on state lines or major throughways specifically to write tickets to outsiders passing through.
Right, and that ticket revenue funds the town budget.
Yep. And to afford the headcount of 14 cops, they exploit an administrative loophole. They don't hire 14 full-time officers with pensions and health insurance. They employ a large ratio of part-time officers or retirees from bigger cities who just want to pick up a few extra shifts a week.
It allows the town to project this highly visible, robust municipal service while keeping the actual operational overhead artificially low. It is a very common structural quirk in American local government.
Which brings us to the climax of this whole bizarre saga. On Friday, so just 2 days after the mayor taped his little fully dissolved note to the door, the town council held a special meeting.
And it was packed, wasn't it?
No, standing room only crowd. Townspeople, the media, the fired cops were all there. Vice Mayor Shane Kornberg and the council stepped up, overrode the mayor, and passed an ordinance immediately reinstating the entire police department.
And crucially, they restored those jobs with full back pay.
Right, because the council realized the mayor didn't even follow his own personnel rules. The town charter states you have to give an employee a 30-day written notice before a suspension or removal of more than 30 days.
And the mayor gave them 0 days notice.
None. So the cops are back, they are getting paid, and the council has formally requested the mayor's immediate resignation, which is currently looming over his head. So what does this all mean?
That's the real question.
When you look at this whole arc, the incredible irony is that the mayor tried to flex this absolute, unquestionable, strong-arm authority. But instead of showing everyone how powerful he was, his actions acted like a lightning rod that instantly united the council, the police officers, and the citizens entirely against him.
It perfectly illustrates the core philosophy found in the opening chapters of the GMA handbook regarding effective relations.
What does it say?
It says, model local governments require trust, respect, and teamwork between elected officials and appointed staff. You can possess all the structural authority in the world on paper, the ability to hire, the ability to fire, but if you attempt to govern through tyranny and personal grievance, the system will eventually reject you.
Because he relied entirely on his structural power, but completely ignored his relational power.
Exactly. Without public trusteeship, structural authority becomes brittle. What we saw in Cohuta was basically the system's immune response. The checks and balances designed to correct executive overreach were activated almost immediately by the council and the citizens.
It's amazing how fast it all unraveled. We've gone on quite a journey today. I mean, we started with a shocking, petty little note taped to a police department door on a Wednesday morning over a Facebook post and some low concrete.
The lowest of concrete.
Right. And we untangled the complex legal difference between executive and legislative power in Georgia municipal law. We explored the thresholds of qualified immunity and arrived at a Friday night climax where a town council successfully overrode a rogue mayor to save their town's livelihood.
It serves as a potent reminder. We spend so much of our energy focusing on national politics, but local government is incredibly powerful.
It really is. The big elections get the headlines, sure, but local government is where a single person's bad mood or, a grudge about their spouse's job can literally eliminate a town's entire public safety infrastructure overnight. That is where the real daily impact on your life actually happens.
Absolutely.
But I want to leave you with a final thought, building on something that happened right in the middle of this chaos. When the mayor threw his temper tantrum and broke the machine, Whitfield County Sheriff Darren Pierce stepped in instantly.
He did.
The county took over law enforcement for Cohuta, and by all accounts, they did it seamlessly. There was no spike in crime, no drop in emergency response times, no chaos in the streets.
It was just business as usual.
Right, which raises a really uncomfortable, unasked question that goes far beyond just one bad mayor. If a county sheriff can instantly and effectively take over protection for a town of 900 people without missing a single beat due, towns of this size actually need their own 14-man police departments at all.
That is a very good question.
Could dramatic, petty blow-ups like this be the catalyst that finally forces us to reconsider and perhaps eliminate these tiny, redundant municipal fiefdoms that exist largely to generate revenue through speed traps? Maybe the mayor's nuclear strike on his own HOA didn't just expose his own flaws. Maybe it accidentally exposed that the neighborhood didn't need the fence in the first place.
Wow. Something to think about.
It definitely is. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep asking questions, and we will see you next time.